Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of the Media Row podcast. I'm your host, Justin Miller. As always, a huge thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper for their support. You guys need to go and check out everything that Kelly's Little Nipper has to offer over there at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. And when you do, use that keyword in Woodley and your first drink is on the house, courtesy of Kelly's Little Nipper and the Media Row podcast. Welcome to the show. It is going to be a really fun, busy show because we had so much dumped on us in the last, 48 hours, where we covered live two great games in the Knapp Center, back and forth battles. We're going to get to those, and you're going to hear from Coach Pullman and Coach Henderson. Oh, but then mind you, during Friday night's game, everyone is focused in on what's happening live, but also deep into their phones because you have news about Coach Campbell going to Penn State. We're going to talk about that. And then you have the chaos of just everything after that, of Iowa State declining a bowl invitation, and we're going to talk about that. Then you have college football playoff games over the weekend. Then the brackets finalized. That, of course, will always cause drama. So we will get to every bit of that. But first, before we do, if you are brand new to this show, first off, thank you and welcome to the show. But just go ahead and click that subscribe and like button wherever you are viewing or listening to this podcast, as well as go on to whatever your favorite social media platform is and follow us at Media Row Pod. So let's just start with what we usually do on this show and go with the Drake Bulldogs first. And we're going to start with the game we were just at a few moments ago before we clicked record on this podcast. But the Drake women, we're going to start there on Sunday, fall to Western Illinois, 80-74 in what has just been a really disappointing start to the season for a squad that was picked to finish, I believe, second or third in the Missouri Valley Conference. Yes, they lost a lot of veteranship and offensive scoring, but you saw so much talent, and we see that talent burst onto the scene in the second half of this game, but you're just continuing to see slow start after slow start, scoring drought after scoring drought. And it's leading to this 1-7 start for Coach Pullman and her squad. Very tough first 20 minutes for Drake fans, for Pullman, for the players on Sunday. Drake goes down 46-26 at halftime. And I mean, the first quarter they get outscored 25-16, but the second quarter is even worse. Outscored 21-10. Another slow start where Drake couldn't hit a three. They were 0 for 8 in the first half, multiple turnovers, and also just a really struggling second quarter performance where Drake shoots 2 of 12 in the entire quarter. They had 9 turnovers in the first half, 6 of them coming in that second quarter, all while you have Western Illinois continuing to just pour it on Drake. In the second half, they shot 6 of 14, 2 of 6 from behind the arc. They were 3 of 4 in that first quarter, 10 of 16 as well, where that offense for Western Illinois was very fluent and could really do no wrong. Drake was trying their best to force turnovers with active hands defensively, but just nothing was slowing down the great ball movement Western Illinois had. But what has been the thing we've talked about time and time again with this team? It's their ability to adjust. And we saw it again, where very similar to earlier this week at the kids game where Drake struggled in the first half, dug themselves in a hole, but then come out in the third quarter and look like a completely different team. The difference was on Sunday, this Drake team took down Western Illinois in both the third and fourth quarter. Drake in the second half was incredible. And to be honest, at halftime, I was sitting there even expecting Pullman to make great adjustments and expecting this team to come out with a little bit of a different look and maybe more efficient offensively like we saw earlier this week. But I wasn't expecting them to make it a game. Full honesty. I was sitting there going, just the way Western Illinois has moved the ball, the way Drake has just struggled, there's a lid on the rim right now for the Bulldogs. Maybe they cut it to within 10. They'd been down by as much as 22. And I was wrong. They come out in the third quarter, outscore Western Illinois 21 to 12, and then win the fourth quarter 27 to 22. Great performances by Abby Alsma and Grace Knutson. Grace Knutson, 24 points, a new career high. You had Abby Alsma, who put up 12 points alone in that third quarter, 5 of 7 shooting. She ends the day with 22 points. Drake cuts this lead down to 5 with about 6 minutes to go. But then just some other issues that we have seen throughout this season for the Bulldogs, where turnovers, some tough possessions late in the shot clock where you can just tell there's some miscommunication. And the Bulldogs, they put themselves in too deep of a hole early on. They had a great second half, but it was too little too late, and they fall to Western Illinois 80-74, despite great performances by their guards. But was able to sit down with Coach Pullman after this game and asked her, just about the team's ability to, put together these adjustments and what makes them so special with these adjustments. And
when they come out at halftime, they're just so inspired because of the speech that they just got. I'm just teasing. What I honestly think it lends to is, you go into the locker room and you're able to have conversation. You're able to get back pumped up, get back focused. And I think a lot of times that's what this team needs. Just a refocus on, being really, really intentional on what we can do, what we can have success with, and then now stepping on the floor, going out there and knowing that there's a belief in what they do and then executing it.
And I really respect Coach Pullman, for being honest about this team is growing. You are seeing a little bit of a change here. You see a big change from, the game on Wednesday and the game on Sunday, but you're not going to be able to win games if you only win 2 quarters. You have to perform for all 4 quarters, and that's what Drake has struggled with so far. And so Drake falls to 1-7, and they have another tough challenge. They're going on the road to play St. Thomas on Saturday. So that game at 1:00. Hopefully Drake is able to get back on the winning side of things, but we shall wait and see. There's a lot of talent on this Drake roster, but right now just really struggling, like we mentioned on Wednesday's show, of finding that consistency and making sure the highs aren't so drastically different from the lows. There was this game was a perfect example. The lows were very low and the highs were very high. You got to find a way to balance it out if you're going to be a great team. So Drake will take on St. Thomas on Saturday, and another tough performance, another tough outcome for Bulldog fans on Sunday, as well as it was on Friday. The Drake Bulldogs fall to UAB Friday night, 74-69, in a game that lived up to our expectations on this show for sure. We talked about how these are 2 teams with same exact records. They had performed the same exact ways, winning 4 of their last 5, and you had these 2 teams where a part or a key that Drake was successful at, UAB struggled, and vice versa. So you knew this was going to be a back and forth battle. And I will give a credit to the Knapp Center. That was the rowdiest and loudest crowd we had heard all year long so far, where sure, most of it was because of the performance on the court and the back and forth nature of the game. Some of it maybe was because of the officiating, but all of it was because it is college basketball at its finest. Two really strong teams going back and forth. You have bodies on the floor. You have hard fouls. You have great defensive stops. You have electric offensive plays by both teams. And it was just a really exciting game, but the outcome was not what we wanted as Bulldog fans. Bulldogs lose their fourth game of the season. It's now 3 out of 4 losses by 5 or less this year. Robert Morris by 2, SIUE by 2, and this one by 5. And we're just seeing for Coach Henderson's squad, very difficult to close out games. Just a very difficult stretch for Drake in those last few minutes when in the second half, they were looking like the team in control of the game. So before we dive too much more into this one, I do want to play for you the audio from Friday as Coach Henderson spoke to us media after the game. So I brought it up to Coach Henderson. I wanted to ask him about what was different from this tight game loss compared to the other two. And here's Coach Henderson's answer.
We're still learning, we're still growing and I think a little bit different. We're playing differently than we were against, Robert Morris and SIUE. And that seems like a season ago almost, to be honest with you. And so those are in the rearview mirror, and we'll worry about what we did tonight and we'll grow from that. And we've got to understand and what I mean by that is just making sure we understand who we are and what makes us our best, and making sure that we establish that identity and not the other team. And that's the thing we've got to get over the hump here, especially in the Knapp Center where, we've dropped some tough ones.
And a huge thank you to Coach Henderson for the post-game interview. I agree with him that this team is improving. It is getting better. And you watch those tough losses to SIUE and the tough losses to Robert Morris in overtime at home. And it does feel different than the loss to UAB, where UAB, you almost felt like that defense, they just did a really good job of forcing Drake into uncomfortable scenarios. Now, do I feel like Drake was the better team? At times, watching that game, I'm sitting there going, this is a game Drake should win. And I went in expecting Drake to win this game, and they still came up short. And it's because of we're seeing some of the same issues. Another slow start for the men. They started 2 of 11 in the first 9 minutes. And despite the slow start and despite the issues we were seeing in that first half, Drake never trailed by more than 6. And that was a credit to their defensive effort. While things weren't going right offensively for Drake on Friday night, the defense still was very physical. They had to be physical because of how hard UAB was playing them. UAB's defense was really impressive on Friday night. And I know fans were upset about, a few no calls, but overall, credit to UAB for coming into Des Moines and playing that style of defense, and just with the physicality, did a really good job of forcing a lot of uncomfortability for that Drake offense. But one of those lingering issues we are seeing with Drake is their inefficiencies battling the boards. UAB is a great team rebounding. We talked about it on Friday's show of how important the battle of the boards was going to be. Drake on Friday night couldn't buy a rebound. They get out rebounded 44-30. And that was the defining factor in a 5-point loss in a game where Drake's offense, sure, we'll get into the poor shot selection and UAB's physical defense, what they were able to challenge Drake offensively with here in just a bit. But when Drake's defense was playing as good as it did, when there were moments and stretches where Drake did look like it was going to gain the momentum and come out of the Knapp Center with a victory, you're looking on the box score for what was the difference maker, and it was quite simply the rebounding. And we're seeing that time and time again. And it truly is shocking with how much preseason talk and hype Drake was having with their size and versatility. And I still believe in those guys. It is just a young group that is still trying to, I think, figure out a Coach Henderson system. And so despite them having those issues offensively where there were poor shot selections, Drake, on Friday we talked about how a key for the Bulldogs was that inside out game. The best this Drake offense looks is whenever you can get guys like Jalen Quinn or Federico, Exact, if they can get downhill, they can get 2 feet in the paint. Then you have Applehans, Shetler, or Thomas staying outside. So you have those 2 options of you have a guy driving to the hoop. If it's not there, you can kick it out. UAB, with their physicality, did a really good job of closing those gaps in the paint while also making it really hectic and difficult to kick it back out. Credit to UAB for most of all, their ability to close in those paint gaps, those driving lanes. Also, though, an issue we saw on Friday, Drake got panicked too quick, where Exact or Thomas would drive and there'd be 3 guys on him, and instead of slowing it down, kicking it out, they would kind of almost panic and quickly take up a shot. And so you saw some poor shot selections. Late in the game, Drake was down 3, and you're sitting there saying, Drake doesn't need a 3. If you get a look, take it, great. But you can settle for a 2 at this moment. And down 3 late in the game, Drake with some really poor game management where they kind of dribbled out the clock on themselves. UAB wasn't pressing. And you have the crowd in the Knapp Center counting down the shot clock, and it's up to Braden Applehans to just heave up a top of the key 3 with a hand right in his face. So not a great look, even though we know his talent shooting the deep ball. But just some poor shot clock management, some poor shot selections, and credit to UAB's defense for closing in on those lanes. But they put themselves into a hole in that first half. They were still only down by 1, 33-32, so all wasn't lost by any means. But the second half, Drake team, they came back. They were able to get that fire back into the crowd. They were able to take the lead after not being able to really see the lead a whole lot in that first half, but it wasn't enough. They actually get beat in that second half by a score of 41-37. And it was the first time all year that Drake had been beat in the second half box score. So much like the women, just put themselves into a hole hole early and really struggled to kind of regain that lead and take over the game. They had moments where they took the lead, but really struggled with it. I mean, Drake had the lead for under 3 minutes and UAB 31 minutes with the lead. So there's the story of the game right there for you. But to end on a positive note from Friday night, you had Owen Larson back. Huge for this Drake team. I mean, I think it's going to be critical late in conference play for this Drake team this year to have a guy that has been in Coach Henderson's system and to help this offense out that is starting to click, but has some issues still to be kinked out. I think Isaiah Carr showed what he can do for this team coming off the bench. He had 8 points. His seal outs were incredible in the first half. So definitely the best performance we've seen from him in a Drake uniform. And then Jalen Quinn continues to just be an absolute stud offensively. 26 points, 11 of them coming in those final 6 minutes. It's almost looked like he was going to be able to lead Drake to victory by himself offensively in that second half. But just another tough loss, another game where you're sitting there going, man, that's one Drake will like to have back. That one, the SIUE game, and Robert Morris, you're all sitting there going, those are 3 losses Drake shouldn't have. Drake should win those games. The LSU one you, of course, live with. But Drake will have an opportunity to bounce back and forget about that loss on Saturday at the Knapp Center as they return home to play North Dakota State, a 7-3 team right now. So could be another fun one. We, of course, will break it down on Friday's show. Sticking with basketball, though, because we had a lot of great basketball on Saturday, but none bigger in this state than Iowa State and Purdue. Number 10 Cyclones going up against the number 1 Boilermakers in Lafayette, where Purdue has been incredible in the past few years. And you had this Iowa State team absolutely dominate the number 1 team in the country, 81-58. And first and foremost, I love that as a true road game for Iowa State. I hate when you turn on Gonzaga, Kentucky, and it's being played in Nashville. You want to see those true road atmospheres, and what makes college basketball so special. Iowa State, the crowd in Lafayette did not bother them. 81-58. I'm not surprised Iowa State won this game. I am speechless, though, in how they did it. Purdue, it's their worst home loss in program history. If you were someone who was nervous about maybe the Cyclones having a shooting hangover after their record-breaking performance against Alcorn State earlier this week, no worries about that. They went 11 of 23 from the three-point line, held Purdue 4 of 18. Iowa State's ceiling right now is changed, or it's actually becoming more attainable. I know for the past few years, the national media, us for sure, and local media, we know how good Otzelberger is as a coach, and we know how good these Iowa State teams are, where you do sit there and go, man, if you get the seeding right, if you get the right teams, if you get a little lucky, you could maybe make the Final Four. You always expect Iowa State to have a deep run in March, but after that performance, they are a true national title contender. It's no longer a fever dream for an Iowa State fan to say this team could win a national title. They just proved it on Saturday. All those expectations, that ceiling, just became attainable after one performance. You have a game like that where you embarrass the preseason favorites on their home court in the fashion you did. Yes, you are true title contenders now. And I think this is the most balanced Otzelberger coach Cyclone team we've seen. Their depth is still something I am a little concerned about, but I still believe that this could be the most balanced Otzelberger coach Cyclone team we've seen. Because you have a guard in Taman Lipsey, when healthy, is probably the best floor general on the court in the country. And then you have an offense that has size in the paint. You have Jefferson, you have Buchanan, who actually really impressed me how they competed with the size advantage that Purdue had. They only lost the rebounding battle by 1. They were winning it at halftime, which was really surprising to me. But so they can shoot the ball outside with Momcilovic. They can take those fadeaway 15-foot jumpers. They have a mid-range game with Jefferson, also Momcilovic. But then you also have a post presence with Buchanan, Jefferson, and we know the driving ability of Lipsey. And so I like the way they're balanced offensively, and then their defense continues to just impress me. I mean, they forced 6 turnovers alone from Braden Smith, who is regarded as the best point guard in the country and had flashes where you understand why on Saturday. But they made things difficult for him. And they were clogging up the passing lanes. They have active hands, and they will get physical with anyone. And so I was really impressed on Saturday. Again, not shocked Iowa State won that game. They were a top 10 team going into Saturday. We know Otzelberger is a great coach. If they would have won by 8, I would have been like, whoa, wow. I'm not surprised they won, but 8 is a lot. I am speechless by them winning 81-58. But after one game, Iowa State, true title contenders. True title contenders. I know they'd been talked about. I know you always expect Iowa State to have success in March. But now, if an Iowa State fan walked up to you and said, we could win the national title, my first response isn't, well, you got to see how you're seeded. No, I'm going, yeah, you could. You proved it to me against Purdue. So very impressed with Iowa State. A huge one in the state coming up on Thursday as the Cyclones return back to Hilton to face Iowa in the Cyhawk battle. Ben McCollum, the first time coaching at Hilton Coliseum, and they have this Iowa State team, which very excited to see how far they get bumped up because, man, you put a performance like that, you could have just shot yourself up into the top 5. So really excited. We will be covering a lot of the Cyclones and Hawkeyes this week. We actually have John Walters, the voice of the Iowa State Cyclones, coming on the show for Wednesday to preview that game. And then, of course, Friday, we will definitely add that to our show rundown to preview. And we'll give you a winner for that one as well. Sticking with the Cyclones, and now Iowa State fans, I got you feeling really good about your basketball team. Now it's time to get a little sad, as your head coach, Matt Campbell, is leaving for Penn State. It was announced Friday night. It sounds like it's going to be an 8-year contract. We don't know the salary, but it is kind of assumed that it'll be in that $8 to $10 million range, just because he was making $5 million at Iowa State, and you would have to expect they had to give him a pretty damn good offer. And first and foremost, the thing that surprised me most about like the whole contract, since we're talking contracts, was Matt Campbell's buyout was only $2 million. Only $2 million. I read Summer Iowa State for getting their new head coach from Washington State, Jimmy Rogers. They had to pay Washington State $4 million. Matt Campbell is a coach that we make fun of all the time for always having his name in the coaching carousel. Any jobs open, Matt Campbell would be a good fit. We always joked about that here in the state. But you only had his buyout at $2 million? Come on, Jamie Pollard. Let's bump that up next time if you get a coach like this. But again, I know I mentioned fit with Matt Campbell and Penn State, which I still believe, even though, man, got my throat ripped out. If you want some entertaining reading, go check out my Twitter post at Justin_C Miller and read about all the Penn State fans going after me after I talked about fit. But I still believe that. I also do believe, like I said in the start of the clip, that Campbell is a good coach. What he was able to do at Iowa State was incredible. And you could tell the emotions from, you saw Chris Williams' emotion with his Iowa Everywhere, breaking news, the Coach Campbell discussion that he had. You saw the emotion on Jamie Pollard's face and his voice. You could hear it as he teared up talking about Matt Campbell. He had done so much for this program. As a kid, you had Gene Chizik winning 2 games. You had Paul Rhodes that had some, really exciting moments. Beating Oklahoma State is a great moment. And, the 3 overtime victory against Iowa, the Nebraska win. He's had some great moments, but man, those teams were never even remotely close to touching what Campbell had in 10 years, where they had won the Liberty Bowl, they had won the Pop-Tart Bowl, they had been in 2 Big 12 championships, and it is incredible what he was able to do with so little. So yeah, you do expect him to now be able to do much more, since he has much more at his disposal too at Penn State. I'm still leaning on the side of let's sit back, let's wait and see, because I still think the culture fit is difficult, but he has a great schedule to start out with. Couldn't have asked for a better schedule. One thing I want to hit on before we get into other dark Iowa State football topics is one thing I was seeing on Twitter Friday night, and it came from a friend of the show, Shannon Earhart from Channel 8. She tweeted out, before anything had been official with Matt Campbell, she had tweeted out she had asked a Cyclone player about how they heard about the news, how Campbell spoke to him, and the Cyclone player said that he heard the news via Twitter. And that's all fair. I'm not going to take the segment to talk about Shannon. I'm taking the segment to talk about the people's response to her tweet, where people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe Coach Campbell did that. I think that doesn't sound like Coach Campbell." Everybody freaking out about, players finding out via social media. I don't know if you know this, but everybody's on their phones. Everybody's on their phones. I think this is not a big deal that players found out first via Twitter. Campbell, by the time he schedules a team meeting, the news is out. And it's just the way of the world. He's not going to be with these players 24/7 holding their hands. And so, yeah, a player goes to the bathroom, brings his phone in with him. He's going to see it first. I don't think it was that big of a deal. I know Cyclone fans are upset, and they saw the tweet and, of course, are making up some assumptions that Campbell would never do that. Or if he did do that, oh, man, he totally isn't the guy we thought he was. No, that's going way overboard. It's the day and age. Internet is everything. It's how we communicate. Everyone has their phones on them 24/7. I think that's a big nothing burger. I don't think that should affect Campbell's legacy whatsoever with Iowa State. But in just moments after Campbell, it becomes official that he's leaving for Penn State Friday night, Iowa State finds their guy in Washington State's Jimmy Rogers, who went 6-6 in 2025, is an FCS national champion with South Dakota State. It does make you think, Campbell probably got a call from Penn State earlier this week and then sat down with Jamie Pollard. And I think you can take this one of two ways. One, he loves the program of Iowa State and respects Jamie Pollard so much that he wants to make sure, like he always said, to leave the place better than he found it. And so he lets Jamie Pollard know before he says anything else so that Pollard can get his ducks in a row. I could see that. I could also see what is behind curtain number 2, as I could see Campbell trying to use that as leverage, being like, hey, Penn State's offering me this. And it was probably like on Monday or Tuesday, he gets that call. And then Pollard just being like, we can't pay you that. We can't compete with that. But Iowa State finds their guy in less than 24 hours, while it took Penn State 54 days to find their guy. And you kind of thought, all right, that's the chaos. Iowa State will have an interim. Now, let's see what bowl game they get on Sunday. The chaos did not slow down. Iowa State on Sunday morning announces that they will decline their trip to the Liberty Bowl, which I could make a really, funny joke about how I would decline that trip too if I was Iowa State, because going to that Liberty Bowl, that experience sucked. So I'm with you there, Iowa State. But in all seriousness, I think two things can be right here for Iowa State. One, I think it's incredibly weak. I think it's incredibly weak that you as a program just declined a bowl opportunity. You guys have the phrase, loyal sons forever true. I guess when you want to be, the players vote and say that they didn't want to play in this bowl. I mean, 5 years ago, you look at Iowa State as a football program. They're in Ames. They win the Liberty Bowl in 2017. Ames is about to have a freaking parade. But now you're too good for the bowl game? I think it's incredibly weak. I kind of understand the decision, but you get fined $500,000 from the Big 12. Don't worry, also getting fined from the Big 12 is Kansas State, so that's just crazy to think these two ranked teams in week 0 in Dublin facing off are now teams that are declining bowl invitations. I don't like it, but here's where the second part of two things can be true. Number 2, bowl games don't matter. We've been saying it for years, that bowl games don't matter now, especially with the college football playoff expanding and sounding like it's going to hit 16 teams next year. They just don't matter. That's where the only other two things can be true. But more, first and foremost, is I think it's incredibly weak. I think it's an awful look for Pollard and the athletic department. I think now, if you're Iowa State, bad timing, first and foremost, to decline this. I get it. It's probably because you're going to have a skeleton roster and an interim head coach. Who cares? Go out there, play the game, because now, more than ever, you need donations. You need the fans and your donors to give money. And right now, if I'm a donor, if I'm a fan that gave money for NIL, you're not seeing a cent ever again. You would have to really make up some good for me to donate again if I'm someone in that position. Because you can't, if you're Jamie Pollard in Iowa State, you cannot ever go in front of people and go, oh, we just don't have the money. I need your guys' money. When you just opted out of a bowl game that will give you some money. And also, if you're here's $500,000. Yeah, we won't play. Here's $500,000 like it's nothing. Then you can't go in front of people and go, hey, now since we have this new coach, we need to support him and we need to get players, right? So we need your money. Awful look for Iowa State. Awful look and weak look. I will also add in there, though, bowl games just don't matter. They just don't matter. Give me a 2014 playoff, take out all the other bowl games, and let's just do what the FCS playoffs does, because they seem to be doing just fine. Keeping in the football lane, because we have to hit on the college football playoff bracket, because, man, Sunday at 11 a.m., your phone is blowing up. Each and every one of us, our phones were blowing up, talking about, oh my God, did you see who got this seeding? Oh my God, they kicked out this team. Oh my God, there's 2 group of 5 teams. So we're going to talk about it. And I want to start with the Notre Dame debate. I am absolutely pissed off that Bama didn't get moved at all for losing by 21 against Georgia. And, they lost earlier this year to Florida State in week 1. And they barely beat a bad Auburn team that just fired their head coach. But they don't move at all. The team that gets kicked out is Notre Dame. And everyone's in uproar about it. I think the College Football Playoff Committee got it right, kicking Notre Dame out. I am upset that Bama didn't move an inch. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I think the College Football Playoff Committee is trying to force Notre Dame's hand into getting into a conference by keeping them out, which I think is the right move. Because if you're the College Football Playoff Committee, how do you keep a Notre Dame team in that all they needed to do is win one of the 2 tough games on their extremely easy schedule? Look at Notre Dame's schedule. They don't play anyone except for 2 games this year. They played Miami and Texas A&M. You just need to win one of those. One of those games is at home. You should win that game. And they lost both. So right there, those were your opportunities to prove to yourselves in the College Football Playoff Committee, and you lost out on both. So it's hard as the College Football Playoff Committee to put you in over a team that played in a conference championship, because we're supposed to be impressed that you won 10 straight games that you should win? No. The College Football Playoff Committee, it is not perfect. It is broken. Bama not moving despite their 21-point loss to Georgia is outrageous. Maybe those -3 rushing yards really did a lot for that committee. But I do believe the committee got this one right. I just think Notre Dame being punished, I'm okay with that one. Honestly, I would have rather seen BYU and Miami get in over Notre Dame. Is the College Football Playoff Committee perfect? No. No, by any means. There's a lot of issues. But we'll see what gets ironed out, in the next few months after football season. Will it get expanded to 16? Will it get expanded to 24? But we shall wait and see. And people can be upset. They can say they're not going to watch a single second of the college football playoff. College football doesn't care because they know 99% of this viewing base of this country is going to be watching college football in the playoffs. It's the same arguments of people talking about NIL and saying, oh, this is ruining college athletics, I'm never watching again. And then you'll see a photo of them at, Kinnick or Jack Trice being like, hey, go Clones, go Hawkeyes. Oh, there's things I disagree with that I get really upset about, but I still watch because I love the sport and I love the game. So that will do it. What a fun, busy show, a fun, entertaining weekend. I mean, a weekend I will probably remember for a long time of just the chaos that happened on Friday, both on and off the court for Drake. You have the Campbell news and then just a weekend full of chaos. Just a chaotic weekend in sports. So a lot of fun. Thank you again so much to the coaches, Coach Allison Pullman and Coach Eric Henderson, for the press conference interviews. You can check out more of those interviews at Media Row Pod on Twitter. Thank you again so much, though, to Kelly Zillnepper. You guys make sure to follow, click, subscribe, like, comment, rate, all that good stuff. Keep in touch with the Media Row Pod, and we will see you Wednesday as the voice of the Iowa State Cyclones, John Walters, joins the show to preview Cyhawk, talk Campbell, talk Rogers, talk everything Iowa State here on Wednesday on the Media Row Podcast.